She discovered a $5 wonder on a blind date. The billionaire CEO dad at the next table was inspired. Clara sat at the small booth in the diner, the flickering neon sign outside illuminating the glass with a shaky glow. She absently pushed the wilted lettuce around her plate, every motion a reminder that she was somewhere she didn't want to be. Her friend Sarah had insisted she needed a break, a moment to breathe outside the whirlwind of waitressing 2 jobs and raising Lily alone. The thought made Clara's stomach knot. The blind date was supposed to be a light-hearted diversion, yet the man across from her droned on about himself, completely oblivious to her internal chaos. She knew she should smile and nod, but her mind was miles away. Lily's school project, a makeshift historical presentation on their family roots, loomed heavily in her thoughts. A $5 antique locket Clara had recently found at a garage sale dangled innocently from her neck. Memories of her grandmother whispered to her through the ornate design, but here she was, stirring cold fries instead of diving deep into the meaning behind the locket. She couldn't shake the sense of urgency. If she didn't finish helping Lily with the project tomorrow, they would miss out on something important. "Did I tell you about my promotion?" Her date continued, grinning wide, but Clara felt trapped in his self-made world. She forced herself to respond, but the words felt hollow. But then, as if the universe conspired for distraction, her date's gaze drifted to the locket. "Interesting piece," he remarked, touching it tentatively. Suddenly the conversation shifted, and Clara found a flicker of connection. In this serene diner filled with ordinary folks just trying to live, she unintentionally shared snippets of her past. Her grandmother's recipes, her struggles to support her daughter, how every month felt as if it teetered on the edge of survival. Yet as laughter spilled from her lips, the weight of her reality shackled her again. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Moments later, Clara could feel tension mounting like a balloon ready to pop. She caught glimpses of Jake, the wealthy CEO at the neighboring table, his eyes darting to Clara as she spoke with genuine emotion. His presence, initially unnoticed, now felt like a spotlight illuminating her struggle. Hearing her laughter seemed to disrupt the carefully curated facades he had grown used to in his corporate life. For a moment, it made Clara wonder what connections could be formed in this diner. Was it possible that they were just 2 lost souls, both questioning the paths they'd chosen? But with each revelation about her family, each story intertwined with hope and fear, Clara felt the walls of her comfort zone crumbling. What if the locket held answers about her estranged grandmother's past that she wasn't ready to confront? The stakes were rising. She wanted to embrace the message behind it, to venture into a world of potential and discovery. But dread gnawed at her. Would uncovering the truth lead to deeper wounds for her family, or could it bind them together in ways she never anticipated? As the diner lights dimmed, the kernel of doubt lodged even deeper in her mind. The laughter surrounding her dulled into a murmur as the enormity of her decisions loomed larger, threatening to envelop her. Little did she know, Jake watched with intrigue, sensing the gravity of Clara's words, feeling something inexplicable stir within him, a longing for connection that transcended money and success. Their worlds, so vastly different, held an unexpected thread that connected the two of them. With questions burning inside her, Clara's heart raced, not with excitement, but with the realization that the secrets hidden in her past might just change everything. Would she be brave enough to uncover them? And while Jake pondered his own choices, could he see beyond the surface of profit and loss to what truly mattered? The pressure mounted, leaving Clara on the precipice of discovery, tangled in the uncertainty that promised to redefine all she'd ever known. Clara's heart pounded in her chest, each beat resonating with the weight of her unspoken thoughts. The atmosphere in the diner thickened, swirling around her like heavy fog. She knew she stood at a crossroads. The stories she shared were more than just words. They were keys to her past, each one unlocking a door she had been afraid to open. And yet, there was something electric about the connection she felt with Jake, almost like a gentle push urging her to step closer to the edge of her own existence. "Clara, are you all right?" Her date interrupted her spiraling thoughts, his voice pulling her back into the present. She offered a half-hearted smile, attempting to mask the turmoil raging inside. "You seemed lost for a moment." "I'm fine," she replied quickly, but her thoughts spiraled away again, racing through the possibilities of what might lay hidden within the locket around her neck. Did it hold a secret, a story waiting to be uncovered? Could it lead to connections with her family she had long thought lost? She flicked her gaze toward Jake. His eyes held a flicker of recognition, as if he too sensed that something monumental was brewing beneath the surface. Each pulse of confusion in her mind contrasted sharply with the clarity she found anchoring herself to her responsibilities as a parent. She inhaled deeply, knowing that the journey of self-discovery and the pursuit of her mother's history would not unravel overnight. But that urgent flicker, that fire in her gut, warned her that avoiding those shadows would no longer suffice. As Jake turned his attention back to his phone, she wondered about his life. What was it like to inhabit a world filled with boardrooms and bottom lines? Did he ever feel the gravity of choices weighing him down like she did? She noticed subtle shifts in his demeanor, times when he stole glances at her, intrigued by her rawness, or when his business facade faltered, exposing hints of vulnerability. "I'm actually working on a genealogy project with my daughter," she finally said, feeling bold enough to unveil a fragment of her truth. "It's more than just names and dates. It's about connecting to our past, figuring out where we came from." Jake's eyes brightened for a fleeting second, as if her words had sparked a match in the dark. "That sounds fascinating. You'd be surprised how enlightening it can be to explore your roots. I've looked into my own family history a bit. It really changes the way you view yourself." Clara felt a cascade of encouragement, as if some invisible thread woven between their experiences anchored them together in that moment. Here they were, two individuals from opposite worlds, bound by an unspoken understanding of longing, of wanting their lives to mean something deeper. "You should tell me about your family history sometime," he said, the earnestness in his voice coaxing her to reveal more. The invitation was bold and unexpected. Would she dare take this chance, push past her limits? I might just do that," she stammered, surprised by her own willingness to engage. Maybe there was more than just fear in her heart, but a nascent strength waiting to burst forth. Hours later, as her date wrapped up and they rose from the booth, Clara felt a shift within her. The waiter's departure was imminent. The sense of urgency that had dominated her entire evening began to morph into an undeniable determination. She needed to confront her fear, no longer allowing her past to dictate her present. The locket held the potential for closure and new beginnings. Jake stood beside her now, his stature a reminder of the myriad possibilities in life. "Let's keep in touch, Clara," he said, surprising her with a warm smile. As she left the diner, Clara's mind swirled with the evening's revelations. She glanced down at the locket, feeling the heat of its weight against her skin. It would be more than a trinket. It would serve as her compass in the endeavor to connect the pieces of her family's past. But little did she know that her quest for understanding would tip the delicate balance she had maintained for years. With each step away, a sinister voice in her head questioned if she had the fortitude to face the unseen truths that would soon emerge. The very fabric of her life was on the verge of unraveling as the search began. What stories awaited her in uncovering the past? Would digging deeper bring more pain, or could it reveal a strength she had never tapped into? As the streetlights flickered across her path, Clara braced herself for the journey ahead, uncertain of where it might lead, but resolved to push forward. The heat of discoveries to come crackled in the air like a summer storm, hinting that everything was about to change. Clara walked down the dimly lit street, her mind racing with possibilities. She felt the weight of the locket pressing against her collarbone, a tangible reminder of the quest she had only just begun. The diner lights flickered behind her, casting a warm glow on her resolve. What had once seemed like a pathway littered with uncertainties now sparkled with potential. With each step, she could feel a low hum of anticipation building. The locket, an unexpected heirloom from a past she barely understood, filled her thoughts with questions. Who had worn it before her? What stories rested within those delicate engravings? It suddenly didn't feel just like a piece of jewelry, but a legacy waiting to be reclaimed. Clara was determined to find answers. Mapping out a plan, she began to visualize the steps needed to dive into her family history. With a determined breath, she resolved to set aside time this weekend to start her research. A small project turned into a vital mission. She would access public records, scour online databases, reach out to distant relatives if necessary. The very act of intending felt empowering, as the realities she faced began to solidify into actionable goals. But as she turned a corner, headed towards her car parked in the lot, doubt wormed its way into her thoughts. What if she uncovered truths that disturbed her further? She had spent years building a life around the fragments she accepted. Now she was about to reconstruct the puzzle with pieces that might not fit together harmoniously. A flicker of resistance stirred within her, urging her to reconsider, to retreat to the comforts of ignorance. Then she thought of Jake. His interest in her genealogy project ignited something within her, a craving for connection, not just to her past, but potentially to him. She wondered if he would find her research intriguing enough to share over another dinner. That thought sparked both excitement and disquiet. Could she balance the emotional demands of both discovering her roots and nurturing a budding relationship? Back at home, Clara settled into the familiar rhythm of her life. The sound of her daughter's laughter floated through the air as they played in the living room, a playful reminder of what truly mattered. Momentarily shaken by the thought of exposing her daughter to her own tumultuous past, Clara noticed an unanticipated sense of purpose emerge. She had to confront her history, not just to better understand herself, but to also pave a clearer path for her child. As she tucked her daughter into bed later that night, Clara's resolve solidified. "Mommy," her daughter murmured sleepily, "can we find all the stories together?" That simple request ignited a fierce determination in Clara's heart. Not only would she confront the shadows in her past, she'd create an environment where her daughter could learn about courage, authenticity, and the strength it takes to unveil the truth. Her past no longer felt like an insurmountable obstacle. It transformed into a battlefield where she would fight for clarity and legacy. A new line of thought began to unfold in her mind, pushing aside ephemeral fears. She had the power to shape her family's narrative, to frame it not just as something lost, but as something worth reclaiming. As she lay in bed, tossing and turning, Clara's thoughts turned to Jake once again. Something about his willingness to listen stoked her curiosity about what someone like him could offer in her journey of unraveling familial complexities. But a growing instinct warned her that in sharing her truth, she might unveil vulnerabilities she had long kept buried. Night deepened, and Clara drifted off, her dreams swirling with images of her past intertwined with her aspirations. She awoke the next morning, fueled by an urgency to begin, her fingers itching to start the search. But just as enthusiasm washed over her again, a horrifying thought pierced through. What if the truth she uncovered not only darkened her path, but also cast a shadow over her future with Jake? And so, as the sun rose, Clara found herself standing on another precipice, a step away from enlightenment or turmoil. Would she let her curiosity guide her, or would the fear of confrontation hold her back? The choice was hers. But time was running out, spurred on by the mystery surrounding the locket now resting heavy on her heart. Clara awoke to the soft glow of morning light filtering through her curtains, casting a golden hue on her bedroom walls. The locket felt alive against her skin, a heartbeat echoing the rapid pulse of uncertainty coursing through her. She rolled out of bed, her resolve tempered by the intensity of the task ahead. Today was the day everything would change. She could feel it coiling in the depths of her stomach. Days of meticulous planning had led to this moment. After breakfast, she would seize the opportunity to Google her family's last name, digging into the branches of her genealogy that had remained, until now, a mere whisper in the hallway of her mind. Her daughter's innocent question danced like a firefly in her thoughts. Could they truly uncover their family's hidden stories together? With the coffee warming her hands and the aroma filling the air, she envisioned the hours stretched ahead, a blend of triumph and trepidation. Narrowing her focus, she pushed aside the flickering doubts that threatened to overwhelm her. Each keystroke resonated with the weight of her goals. She needed to unearth history that might carry more than just her family's name. Clara meticulously outlined her strategy. Find local archives, seek out distant relatives on social media, and check platforms for public records. The rhythm of her fingers on the keyboard grounded her, channeling a previously dormant energy. As she navigated through various websites, a mix of exhilaration and anxiety cascaded over her. With every snippet of information she uncovered, Clara was reminded of her inherent strength. She wasn't just skimming through dates and names. She was weaving a tapestry of who she was, where she came from, and how those roots shaped her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Jake, asking if she'd like to meet for coffee later that week. A warmth spread through her chest, battling the anxiety simmering beneath her skin. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard as images of potential revelations flashed before her. What would he want to know? How much should she share? The fear of revealing her tumultuous past reared its head once again. Would he still see her as the same person if he learned about the discrepancies in her family history? She had prided herself on maintaining a polished facade, unbreakable in her relationships. But Jake had shown a level of kindness that unraveled her defenses. The desire to uphold honesty battled with a pragmatic concern that maybe some secrets were meant to remain hidden. Closing her laptop momentarily, Clara took a deep breath, letting the coffee's warmth ripple through her. She sat in silence, allowing the tension to settle in her bones. The thought of sharing her journey with Jake felt daunting, yet liberating. Perhaps he'd understand her need for transparency, recognizing that vulnerability was part of genuine connection. With resolve igniting her spirit, Clara resumed her research. As she stumbled upon a record of a distant relative from decades ago, excitement surged within her. This connection felt significant, echoing her current search for identity. She initiated a search on family trees constructed online, hoping something, anything, would provide insight into the locket. Moments afterward, a flicker of interest tugged at her. The name of a grandparent she'd never heard of stared back at her from the screen. Questions buzzed in her head, each one piercing deeper than the last. Who was this person? What stories lingered in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered? Glimpses of loss and courage intermingled, a painful but necessary dance. A soft knock on the door broke her concentration. It was her daughter, curious and ready for their day. Clara's heart swelled with commitment. This journey wasn't solely about herself, but about building a legacy for her child. She wanted to lead by example, demonstrating the courage it takes to embrace the unknown. As the two ventured into their day, Clara's mind whirled with excitement, driving her further on this path of revelation. Shadows of uncertainty faded into determination. But as they stepped outside, a shadow loomed over her newfound ambitions. What if the past she uncovered led to more questions than answers? What if, in seeking clarity, she lost connection with the present? The possibility sent a chill down her spine, reminding her that some journeys could carve both bridges and divides. The day wore on as Clara cycled through the complex layers of emotion, caught between the past and the future. Little did she know, the revelations awaiting her might not only redefine her history, but could also reshape her burgeoning relationship with Jake. What lay ahead would demand a reckoning, and Clara had to embrace her current crossroads with both trepidation and courage. Would she dare to delve deeper, knowing the stakes could alter everything she had ever known? Clara's mind buzzed as she navigated through the bright, bustling hallway of the local historical society. The heavy scent of old paper and ink whirled around her, wrapping her in a cloak of nostalgia and purpose. Today, she was no longer merely Clara, the weary mother dancing between jobs and family obligations. She had transformed into an explorer, seeking pieces of a legacy that had quietly slipped through her fingers. The archive room housed a dim glow, shards of sunlight illuminating shelves brimming with bags of documents whispering tales of generations past. Clara clutched her notepad, the pages already filled with queries and names from her research. The weighty silence felt as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for her to uncover hidden truths. Her heart raced with anticipation and dread. What if in her search she unearthed painful truths? Shaking the thoughts away, she focused on a lead she had recently uncovered, a distant cousin who had lived just a few towns away. The thrill of connection seemed like a beacon calling her forth. Diving into the records, she felt her fingers skim over faded last names and delicate ink strokes. Each name was a key to a door she yearned to open. As she pored over the intricate details of family trees and legacy records, flashes of her own childhood memories flickered like photographs, unearthing emotions she had buried long ago. Then she found it, a brittle document detailing an event that revolved around the mysterious grandparent she had encountered online. Clara's breath caught in her throat. The name felt like a hovering shadow in her life, looming just out of reach yet present in every family gathering and unshared story. Feeling the heaviness of her past tugging at her heart, Clara grappled with the duality of fear and exhilaration. Who was this ancestor? What suffering or joy had they endured? With each piece of information, Clara could feel the distance she had erected around her memories beginning to crack. She lifted her head, glancing at an older woman across the room who seemed to be following her traces of discovery with observant eyes. Clara caught her gaze, and something, an aura of understanding, passed between them. In that moment, Clara delighted in the realization that perhaps she wasn't alone in this endeavor, reminiscent of a modern treasure hunt. Yet, as she opened her mouth to speak with the woman, a sudden tension gripped her. What if she was intruding on someone else's history? What if this journey was an isolation rather than a connection? Would these discoveries alienate her from her present life and relationships, especially with Jake? Clara inhaled sharply, regaining her bearings. She tightened her grip around her notebook, reminding herself that courage lay in revelation, not in hiding. Diving deeper into her research meant inviting not just understanding, but the stark reality of her lineage. Resolute, she pushed through her reservations. This exploration could reshape her understanding of identity, empower her role as a mother, and shift the dynamic with Jake, if she chose to let him in on this journey. Suddenly, the phone buzzed again in her pocket, jolting her back to the moment. It was Jake, his message bright against the shadowy room. "I can't stop thinking about the last conversation. Can we talk more?" A smile crept up her lips, the warmth of his words filling her with newfound empowerment. Maybe it was time to share. But there was a fundamental question looming large in her mind. What parts of her truth would she dare unveil? The battle between her past shadows and the warmth of the present tugged fiercely at her conscience. Each new piece of information demanded her courage. It would lead to choices not only about ancestry, but also about intimacy and trust. As Clara meticulously recorded every swell of emotion, every name, and each vital story, she felt the distance closing. However, new questions pulsed within her. Would the unveiling of her family history bring illumination or heartbreak? Would she become more connected to her lineage, only to risk severing ties with the present? With that, she plunged back into the records while her heart raced toward yet another revelation, the impending confrontation with the truths yet to surface. Would this journey lead her to the answer she desired, or blind her to the present moments waiting for her? Clara's fingers trembled slightly as she turned the brittle page, the document laden with history leaning dangerously close to revealing secrets she felt unprepared to handle. The names and dates swirled in her mind like smoke from a dying flame, each one demanding attention, each one begging her to uncover more. This was about more than piecing together a family tree. It was about confronting the legacy that shaped her, the adrenaline of discovery coursing through her veins. As she dove deeper, one name caught her breath again, a distant relative, one whose life was marred by tragedy. A letter, hastily penned, spoke of a loss that echoed through time. Clara's heart ached for this ancestor, whose voice may have been drowned out by the passage of years. What did it feel like to carry burdens so heavy, the sharp edges of grief slicing through the fabric of daily life? Suddenly, Clara felt a kinship, a connection that transcended time, mingling past pain with her present-day struggles. Memories of her own insecurities flickered in the back of her mind, uninvited yet undeniable. She had spent so long afraid to let her vulnerabilities surface, hiding behind the roles of mother and professional, too caught up in survival to confront the scars of her history. The notion of stepping out of that suffocating cocoon was intoxicating, yet terrifying. Deciding to take a break, she stepped out for a breath of fresh air, needing to shake the weight of the documents for just a moment. The sunlight streamed down as she leaned against the cool stone wall outside, marveling at the dichotomy of her life. The warmth of the present contrasting sharply with the chill of untold stories. What if exposing these truths brought them to life, allowing her not only to heal herself, but also to better understand the complexities of motherhood and partnerships? As she pondered, a text from Jake pinged again, this time with a simple yet profound question. What do you want our story to be? The intensity of his inquiry pulled her deeper into her own thoughts. Was this exploration merely a selfish venture into her past? Or could it inform how she approached their future together? The urgency of her instincts pushed her. If she kept her findings to herself, would she be robbing Jake of the chance to support her? Alternatively, what if he felt unmoored by revelations of a family she barely understood? Each consideration throbbed like a heartbeat in her chest. Stepping back into the archive, Clara locked her gaze onto the comforting clutter of files waiting for her. There was power in knowledge, potential in connection. She needed to unravel her fears and share this journey with Jake. The thought exhilarated her, allowing her to envision a forward motion for both her personal growth and her relationship. She immersed herself in the archives once more, looking for more than just documents. She sought stories that merited retelling, narratives that interwove her fragmentary past with the vibrant life she was cultivating. She was daring herself to transform not only her understanding of who she was, but also, in turn, the very foundation of her family. As she scribbled notes and thoughts, she felt a shift inside her, an empowering thrust that pushed her toward an emerging vision. Each piece of her ancestors' story beckoned with lessons. Choices made versus choices avoided. Love found in adversity. Clarity born of conflict. The line separating history from her own reality began to blur, intermingling emotions and wisdom. What if revealing the complexities of her lineage enabled her to redefine her narrative? Instead of fearing the past, what if she could embrace it, using it as a canvas upon which to sketch her future? The weight of those potential stories wrapped around her once more as she turned. The older woman from before approached, her inquisitive gaze unwavering. Clara felt a pull toward her, an unspoken connection grounding her resolve. Tentative yet curious, Clara prepared to engage, understanding fully now that this was merely the beginning of a much larger journey. She could already sense the pages turning, her narrative evolving with every choice, one that would explicitly affect not only her path, but also the very essence of those she chose to bring along with her. "Can you help me?" Clara asked, her voice steady despite the apprehension swirling in her gut. The woman smiled knowingly. "Perhaps what we uncover together will uncover you." And just like that, Clara felt the pulse of potential running through her. With one question answered, she was met with more shadows to chase, mysteries waiting to solidify. Would she discover not just her family's history, but also an understanding of herself that simultaneously opened avenues toward the future she so desperately craved? The pull of the past beckoned, but the implications for her present loomed large, demanding consideration at each turn. With that thought drumming in her mind, Clara braced herself for whatever lay ahead, not yet fully aware that the most profound truths often arise from the most complex revelations. Clara studied the older woman's face, searching for signs she could trust this stranger with her fragile aspirations. The lines etched into her skin spoke of burdens carried, perhaps similar to the ones Clara now sought to understand. There was an unspoken wisdom in the woman's gaze that made Clara's heart race, not out of fear but of the possibility of guidance. "What do you mean by that?" Clara inquired, her voice slightly wavering, revealing some of her underlying anxiety. The woman's smile deepened. "We learn by unearthing what lies beneath. Each story illuminated casts a light on our own." Feeling the weight of her own complicity in her fears, Clara nodded, invigorated by the promise of unraveling those concealed narratives. "I want to explore my family's past, but I don't know where to start," she admitted. "There's so much I feel I need to uncover. It's like I'm standing at the edge of a vast ocean, too afraid to jump in." "Start with what resonates with you," she advised. "Look for the stories that ripple within your core. The truth of your ancestors might echo in your own heart." With each whisper of encouragement, Clara's resolve solidified. In that moment, the archives felt less like a dim memory of the past and more like a bridge to her future. She followed the woman deeper within the organized chaos, wandering the labyrinth of history, but this time on a quest. She became more attuned to the flurry of emotions the documents inspired, understanding now how much of her behavior was modeled by those who came before her. There was an astonishing release in acknowledging this connection. Her shaky fingers transformed into confident instruments of discovery. Each page she turned acting as a therapy session, unearthing both empathy for those long gone and newfound compassion for herself. As she pulled out another folder, the name Agnes Tuttle greeted her. Clara's heart quickened. She was not merely a name, but a person grappling with difficulties Clara recognized all too well. The letters penned by Agnes wove a narrative steeped in loss and longing. Clara felt layers of understanding unfolding within her as she read Agnes's lamentations about balancing familial duty with the pursuit of her dreams. Each phrase resonated deep within, the pull to fulfill expectations from others clashing with the burning desire to find one's authentic self. Clara's own echoing desires came to the forefront. Why had she feared vulnerability? The letter dripped with truth that Clara had never dared to vocalize to herself, let alone confront. Suddenly a sense of urgency washed over her. What if she was destined to repeat the cycle of silence and suppression that stifled Agnes? The mere act of intellectualizing her family's pain didn't feel sufficient anymore. It was time to confront her own suppressions with the same courage her ancestors mustered. Her phone vibrated with another message from Jake. "Where are you? Just checking in." At that moment, the anxiety of sharing this journey with him made her heart race. What if he wouldn't understand the depth of what she was uncovering? What if he's not ready for this? She mused, frustration and trepidation coursing through her veins. The fear of alienating him battled with the need for sincerity, each one tugging at her in different directions. Questioning whether she could articulate her journey without pushing him away, Clara resolved to transform their dialogue when she returned home. It was not just about her unveiling family secrets. It was about bridging the gap that fear had created between them. With renewed determination, Clara focused on Agnes's courageous unfolding, realizing her life's complexities mirrored her ancestral threads. She would not allow the ghosts of the past to dictate her present. Instead, she could take a plunge into the ocean of understanding, no longer drowning in echoes of expectation, but swimming fiercely toward authentic expression. And as the older woman continued to sift through archival treasures with her, Clara sensed an exhilarating shift. A primal urge to redefine her narrative was starting to emerge from within. Would she be brave enough to confront the shadows and, with them, fearlessly share her revelations with Jake? The stars awaited their emergence, but the darkness of hidden truths still loomed, demanding exploration. What clarity would she gain if she confronted her past alongside a partner willing to evolve with her? Clara had to know. "Are you ready?" the older woman asked, breaking her trance, a flicker of anticipation dancing in her eyes. As Clara met her gaze, she realized this was not just an invitation to delve deeper. It was a challenge to embrace her story and set the stage for a future redefined. Clara took a deep breath, her heart racing with the realization that she stood on the precipice of transformation. The older woman's question was not simple encouragement, it was a call to action that resonated deep within her. In this moment, the weight of past struggles and the potential for her future intertwined, creating an urgency she couldn't ignore. "Yes, I'm ready," she affirmed, her voice firmer than before. As they resumed their search through the archives, her fingers danced over the delicate papers, feeling an electric pulse of connection to her roots. Each artifact carried whispers of a time and life hidden away, just waiting for someone brave enough to listen. The woman noticed Clara's determination, offering her a knowing smile. "That's the spirit," she replied. "Understanding your history is the first step in shaping your future. Remember, it's not just about discovering facts, it's also about revealing the truths that shape who you are." Clara absorbed the words like a sponge, letting them saturate her thoughts. Each discovery ripped open another layer of her internal barriers, disbelief transforming into visceral understanding. She realized how she often constructed her identity based on the narratives around her, rather than the truth of her own experiences. With every letter and photograph uncovered, the battle between expectation and authenticity unfolded before her, layered like a rich tapestry. Clara stumbled upon a journal entry from Agnes that conveyed unfulfilled dreams and quiet resentment, a reflection of her own muted ambitions. It struck her like a bolt, urging her to confront the unease settling within her as she considered facing Jake. She had kept quiet about her desires and fears, holding back out of fear he wouldn't comprehend the weight she carried. But now that she had unearthed Agnes's poignant struggles, Clara felt emboldened. If her ancestor could navigate such turmoil, why couldn't she? "Are you okay?" the older woman gently probed, peering at Clara with a mix of concern and encouragement. "Just realizing how much I've been holding back," Clara admitted, her voice filled with an earnestness that surprised even her. "I didn't think speaking about my family's past would impact my present so profoundly." The woman nodded. "Exactly. Acknowledgement breeds strength. When you face your truth, you clear the path for others to do the same. This universe needs more of that courage." Pondering these words, Clara's mind began to simmer with strategizing. It was one thing to gain insight for herself, but sharing this labor of love with Jake demanded more than courage. It required a plan. Could she create a safe space for both of them to explore honestly? Feeling invigorated, she resolved to propose a conversation with him that aligned her newfound capacity for vulnerability with their relationship. Over dinner, she imagined opening up about her explorations, about Agnes and what she'd learned about family ties and personal ambition. She pictured the realization blooming in Jake's eyes, the connection it would create, the trust it would build. With that exhilarating vision, Clara dove back into her research, branching out to discover more about Agnes and the patterns within their shared lives. This process was both introspective and analytical, each moment of reflection sharpening her vision of who she was and wanted to become. As she gathered pages filled with Agnes's story, she turned back to the woman and said, "I want to keep digging. I want to get to the bottom of who Agnes was, because maybe in doing that, I can find out who I am." The passionate determination in Clara's voice kindled something powerful in the older woman's eyes. "That's the spirit. Dive as deep as you feel necessary. You might be surprised by what you find in the depths." Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. Clara felt the weight of years of emotional barricades crumbling as she allowed the echoes of her ancestors to guide her. The journey was becoming visceral, a path to self-discovery illuminated not just by facts, but by feelings, bold choices, and personal agency. Then, her phone buzzed again, slicing through the moment. This time, it was a photo. Jake at a cafe, bright-eyed and smiling. The caption read, "Thinking of you." Her chest tightened as excitement and apprehension collided. Could she live up to the clarity she was gaining? Would she summon the courage to share the truth of her family and her own burgeoning identity? Clara decided. She would not shy away anymore. The time mirrored the anticipation of the archives, each discovery urging her to confront the present with unencumbered honesty. "Are we ready to set the stage for our stories?" she asked herself, confidence rising within her. The question lingered in the air, challenging her to embrace both her past and her future. How would she navigate this intertwined journey with Jake, threading shared experiences and truths together? The answer awaited just beyond her grasp, but she could sense the momentum building inside her, heralding a new chapter ready to unfold. Would she be brave enough to initiate that life-altering conversation? Clara would make sure to find out. Clara sat at her desk, the papers strewn around her like a scattered map of her ancestors' lives, each one redirecting her internal compass. The quiet buzz of the archives surrounded her, but her mind was a tempest of thoughts. The dinner she envisioned with Jake loomed large in her mind. This wasn't just another conversation, it was the beginning of a new chapter, a step into vulnerability that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Picturing their dinner, Clara fanned through the pages of Agnes's journals, shifting from one insightful passage to another. Each entry was a thread woven into the fabric of her identity, intertwining her struggles with those of the women before her. As she read Agnes' words about personal dreams forsaken for the sake of duty, Clara felt her own ambition stir. She would not allow herself to be another story left untold. What would happen when she finally shared her truth with Jake? Would he resonate with Agnes's dreams? Would he understand that her newly rediscovered ambitions were as vital as the air she breathed? She couldn't shake the need for clarity that seemed just out of reach. Clara stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. She needed to move, to pull herself through this mental exercise. Taking a brisk walk through the nearby park, Clara breathed in the essence of spring. Nature was reborn. It felt like a mirror to her own burgeoning potential. As she strolled, her mind drifted to doubts she still grappled with. What if Jake didn't respond as she hoped? What if he found her truths burdensome? The thought weighed heavy, sparking a crisis within her. In this moment of reflection, her mind raced. Within every strong narrative, there are peaks of bravery shadowed by valleys of fear. Determined to confront her insecurities, Clara made a choice: to practice her approach. Standing at an empty bench, she spoke to the air as if Jake was sitting across from her. "I found something unexpected in my family history," she began, her voice quaking slightly. "It opened my eyes about who I am and what I want in life." As the words spilled out, she felt the knot in her throat loosen, each line strengthening the resolve within. Encouraged, she forged ahead with an honest expression of her fears and hopes. "There's so much I didn't share with you, Jake, because I was afraid of not being understood. I want you to know that my journey is just as vital to me as yours is to you." Completing her imaginary dialogue, Clara felt a wave of emotions, both heavy and liberating. It was as if she had just confronted that dark corner of her mind where doubt lingered, shining light on it in her solitary performance. She grasped the significance of acknowledging her fears, the fear of not being accepted for who she truly was. As Clara headed back home, her heart began to race at the thought of finally inviting Jake into her world. They had made plans for dinner in 2 days, and she felt the urgency brewing within her. This was no longer about selectively revealing parts of herself. This was about ushering him into her complete narrative. What would Jake's reaction be? Would he embrace her vulnerabilities or shy away? The anticipation of the unknown clung to her, invigorating as it was unsettling. Clara understood the stakes. She was at the threshold of a deeper connection, but the thrill also brought a tantalizing fear of what might unravel. Later that evening, as she prepared her home for their dinner, Clara's stomach churned with equal parts excitement and fear. Each clang of her pots echoed the boundaries she was about to cross, a reflection of the journey she was on. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was Jake. He texted to confirm their dinner plans. As she read his message, an electric charge surged through her. The moment she shared her truth was approaching, and she could feel the gravitational pull of her fears drawing closer. From her place in the kitchen, Clara planted her feet firm on the ground, standing tall against the gravity of uncertainty pulling at her heart. She was ready to face this. The echoes of her ancestors urged her forward. Time to forge a new path of understanding with Jake. But what connection awaited her in the words that had yet to be spoken? Clara stood on the edge of a transformative moment, a beacon of clarity shining through the haze of uncertainty that had clouded her past. As she prepared for dinner with Jake, she felt a renewed sense of determination coursing through her veins. No longer was she just a waitress juggling the demands of daily life. She was an emerging scholar of her own lineage, armed with the stories of Agnes and the weight of dreams unfulfilled. The aroma of roasted vegetables filled her home, a tangible manifestation of her commitment to authenticity. She set the table for two, making it a sanctuary for what would be an extraordinary exchange. It was the first step toward achieving not just connection, but also reconciliation with her past. When Jake arrived, Clara's heart skipped a beat, a wave of warmth enveloping her as she welcomed him inside. He looked her in the eyes, and she saw reflected back the same curiosity and tenderness that had sparked their initial conversation. As they sat down together, Clara's resolve strengthened, despite the fluttering of apprehension in her stomach. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady as she poured wine into their glasses. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about who I am and where I came from." Jake met her gaze, his expression encouraging. "I'm glad. I want to know everything you're willing to share." With each word she spoke, Clara felt chains of silence breaking free. She unveiled the intricate threads of her family history. The impacts of her grandmother's life echoed in Agnes's pages. She revealed the burdens of expectations that had smothered her ambitions and how her locket was the catalyst that ignited her quest. The conversations flowed seamlessly, filled with stories of struggle and strength, vulnerability and growth. Jake listened intently, his eyes never wavering, absorbing every emotion-packed syllable. "I had no idea your family's history was so rich," he said genuinely, taken by the depth of her narrative. "It explains so much about you, your tenacity, your kindness." Clara felt her heart soar with recognition, the weight of fear washing away as Jake embraced her truths. "I realized that understanding my family isn't just about revealing the past, it's about reclaiming what I want for my future," she said, her voice thick with emotion. This newfound dialogue illuminated Jake's own past, revealing the pressures of success he had faced. Their conversation morphed into a revelation of shared vulnerabilities, a beautiful tapestry woven from trust taking shape between them. Clara felt exhilarated and empowered as they delved deeper into discussions of what dreams mattered most and how they could support each other in their journeys. As the evening progressed, Clara's confidence solidified like cement, grounding her in purpose. Through her honest sharing, she accomplished not just self-discovery, but also the forging of a profound connection with Jake. He was captivated by her authenticity, reflecting on how it brought them closer, reshaping their potential partnership. "I need you to know," Clara said, understanding the importance of actively nurturing this bond. "I want to build a future that honors both my history and my aspirations. I hope we can grow together." Jake smiled, a blend of admiration and resolve illuminating his expression. "That's exactly how I feel. Let's make sure our individual journeys intertwine." With this powerful commitment, Clara sensed a victory igniting within her. She had successfully unraveled the knots of fear that had long hindered her. Her past was no longer a shadowy burden. It was a foundation upon which she could build her dreams. As the evening drew to a close, Clara felt a rush of gratitude. The diner, the blind date, and the locket had propelled her toward this moment of clarity and connection. The emotional weight she had carried for so long began to dissolve, revealing a path lined with potential. Clara realized that this transformation was not merely about uncovering her ancestral history. It was about redefining who she was and embracing her dreams without reservation. She had conquered the fears that held her captive, emerging from the shadows into the light of self-acceptance. Standing at the threshold of a new chapter, Clara felt fortified. She had discovered strength in her fragility, solidifying her identity through connection, understanding, and open-hearted dialogue. As they parted ways that night, Jake leaned in and whispered, "I can't wait to explore more together." Clara smiled, knowing they would weave their stories into something beautiful. And at that moment, she had become the architect of her narrative, fully aware that her journey was just beginning, a journey not just defined by the past, but brilliantly illuminated by the promise of the future. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It genuinely makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this powerful ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show your support. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of backing the channel through these actions.